The 5 Elements of Letting Go, the podcast. Discussing mental health openly and freely, and learning tools and techniques to find peace. Hello and welcome to the 5 Elements of Letting Go. I'm Dr. Jared McCollum. My guest today is Kristy Wright-Schell. Now, Kristy is one of my favorite people on the planet. I met her over 10 years ago. She was instructing stand-up paddleboarding on a houseboat trip we went on, a yoga houseboat trip. So we went with this group of yogis out to the Okanagan area, and they got together, Hallie Love got together this awesome couple of houseboats, and we did yoga every morning together at night, and we just had a great party. And one of the people she brought along was Kristy, and Kristy brought her boards and her expertise and taught me how to paddleboard. And ever since then, we've always kind of stuck together. We visit her out in Vancouver. We've every time she's come to the outdoor show in Calgary, we've joined up with her and helped her out and got in the pool there with her to demo boards and stuff. She's just a fantastic person, and I really respect her. She's always got such a good positive energy. She's so good with people. She just, when you're around her, just builds this trust and this peace around here. And I just think she's amazing. And so when I decided to do the podcast, I knew she was someone that I wanted to have on it and to discuss things with. Now, a little bit about Kristy. Not only is she a yoga instructor, and she's very well known in the Vancouver area, she's a stand-up paddleboard instructor and instructor. So she's certified by Paddle Canada to train people in stand-up paddleboarding so they can become teachers and instructors themselves. The other cool thing she does is she does, like if you go to justaddwater.com or .ca, I'll put it in the description. She does she at a hotel in Vancouver in their pool, she has these mats, these like big rectangular mats that she teaches yoga and a workout on. And it's another fantastic thing that she does. But I just love how she works with people and just the peace she carries with her. I think she's a great leader, and she's also on the national paddleboard racing and surfing team. So she made that at the age of 39. Don't want to give away her age, but she's accomplished a lot, and to make the team at that age is pretty impressive. She's still on there. She wants to try it again next year. The season got canceled because of COVID and the pandemic, but she's pretty dang accomplished in everything that she does, and I think she's a fantastic person. So I'm great to have her with us here. One thing I must apologize to Kristy and to our listeners, the first 2 minutes of the podcast are missing. So we missed my introduction, which I just did now. But the first question I asked her is how she feels about the state of mental health in the world today, and especially with everything going on. So we missed, I think, like the first 15 seconds of her answer, but it's right here, right after. And we'll pick up from where she left off. And the rest of the podcast is all there for you to enjoy. Thank you so much for being patient with me. I am not much of an audiophile, and I am was much of a Luddite for most of my life. So I'm learning all this stuff as best I can and working with what I got. So without further delay, here's Kristy. She's fantastic. You're going to love this podcast, everyone. Thank you so much.
Say more and more it's becoming more prevalent, that it's more common, more, I guess the vulnerability aspect of people sharing a bit more about their own experiences has increased, but I still feel we have a long way to go. I feel like a lot of people still wear that mask and that shield of armor. And unfortunately, that armor crumbles from the inside rather than the outside. And allowing people to see what's going on within you is a whole other aspect. And I think our society in general is better, but maybe unsure how to approach it, how to, say to someone and check in with them like, hey, are you okay? And everyone's going to say, yeah, I'm good. And we kind of brush over what's going on within us. And we all do it. To your point, it's something we all have a mental body, we all have a physical body, and we deal with them in different ways. And I think for me, through the physical act of yoga, it's becoming more and more clear that the mental aspect is a much bigger facet, a much bigger piece to the whole. It's how I got more into how I am in my mind versus how I am just in my body. And the two correlate quite closely. But yeah, I think that society is a grander picture with mental health. I think we have a lot of work to do still. And just opening up to one another and being available for each other, both by opening up from our own vulnerability, helps others see that it's okay. Mm-hmm. And that, everyone has read a story, whether through social media, whether online somewhere, about someone going through something. We watch a television show, we watch a movie, and we can relate. There's relatable pieces. But until we're face to face with someone, then we feel like, I have to look a certain way or feel perfect about how I set myself up. I think it detracts from that experience, and we need time with people one-on-one where we feel safe in an environment to do that. And gifting people that space, as I know you do in the spaces and the places that you've worked in the work that you do. And as I work to create a safe and sacred space for those that I've worked with as well, to feel welcome, to take that step, maybe not right away, but know that there is a space to come into. And I think that's really key for everyone, mm-hmm. whether it's in your home or your work or out in your lifestyle life, whether it's just out on the water or out on a walk with a friend.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I find, sometimes with patients, it takes time for them to, open up and feel safe enough to talk about their mental health or stresses they're going through. But then there's other times I find I can sit, a patient will sit down right across from me, and within 5 or 10 seconds, they're bawling and everything's out there. Do you find that as well with, yoga and SUP?
Yeah, I'd say with yoga, I probably would experience more people right away. They feel like the space is available. You set the tone, and to your point, some people are just like, I feel safe and I can just let this out. And that maybe they've been weighing it on their back for a long time, and now they're ready. They're ready to let it go. I think on the water, it's a slower progress, but a really amazing piece, because they're doing their own work while they're out on the water. So first they're learning, they're going through that physical learning. And then once they get attuned to their body, their mind then hovers to the landscape and what's happening around them. And they start to settle a little more. And what often comes up on the ocean is fears and anxieties with water.
I was going to say that, yeah.
So people, they're drawn to the water, and I've been doing my own reading right now about this, is they're drawn to it. We're all drawn to water for this sort of innate feeling, but we also all have our own fears and anxieties about water. I myself, when I was 8 or 9 years old, almost drowned behind the boat on a kneeboard.
Oh,
I was
boy.
strapped in too tight, the board flipped over, I couldn't get out, and someone had to dive in the water and rescue me.
Oh my God, yeah.
And that locked into my memory, and I didn't know for years that existed. But I never put my head underwater. I never wanted to be under the water. It was a fearful place. Being in the water caused me a lot of anxiety. And then I watched Blue Crush. I'm going to sidebar a little bit, but I watched Blue Crush, and I wanted to learn to surf. Well, what do you have to do if you're going to go in the ocean? Well, you're going to have to go underwater. You're going to have to take some waves on the head, and you're going to get tumbled and rolled around. And I definitely personally went through varying degrees of highs and lows, and lows of anxiety, just wild rides of emotions that I couldn't pinpoint where they would come from. I'd get tumbled and tossed, and I'd run out of the ocean, sit on the beach, and just be broken, bawling, releasing. And at one point I had an experience where my mind went right back to being underwater and not being able to breathe, not being able to come up on my own. And the fear had locked in. And it was through the practice of building my skill sets on the water, knowing all the safety measures, sort of doing a little bit of this. I feel good about, okay, if I get into this situation, I can get out. And then just going through it time and time again, but also with skills. So it's like learning these tools that I could then use every time that situation would come up. A big one for me has been breathing. So I talk about this in my yoga practice all the time. People don't breathe. And we exchange oxygen. We're breathing right now. You and we're alive. We're talking. That breath is moving. But are we actually breathing consciously? And we are and we aren't. And the more I've learned about breath, and funny enough, right in front of me right now, I've picked up this book. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's called Breath. And it was
I've read
shown
it
to me. Oh, have you?
Yeah.
And my friend just shared it with me. I literally just picked it up today.
Wow, that's cool.
I'm so excited
it's great.
to read it.
Yeah.
But I've been practicing pranayama since COVID started, and with my teacher online. And just to bring it back to sort of current situation, I didn't realize how much stress and anxiety I was building in the background. And, whether it's finances or other things that are happening, you need to take that time to build your skill set and build those tools. And so I just took the time to sit and breathe for 30 minutes every day, consciously in different ways, different styles of breath, different styles of breath work. And it's amazing how much that created both for my physical body, but especially for my mental body.
It's really interesting. Within Chinese medicine, we have the water element. The organs are kidney and bladder. And so emotionally, the emotion is fear.
Right.
So fear and water and kidney, they're all connected with that. And what's really interesting, within Chinese medicine, when we have a patient that has difficulty breathing, we ask, is there an issue with the exhalation? So breathing out, if it's difficult, it's a lung issue. If we have difficulty breathing in, that's a kidney issue.
Interesting.
So when someone has a hard time getting that deep breath, and because when the kidneys are weak, they can't grasp that breath and pull it down and get that deep breath. So there's this huge connection between fear and, your deep breath and proper breathing, all within, that connection within the 5 elements. And the great hurt, the thing that sets off this system more than anything is shock and uncertainty.
Right.
So the connection with the breath, it's amazing how when we're going through all of this stuff, especially today with, the thing that I find as I've been able to open up the clinic again, every patient that's coming in is dealing with fear. And it's not outright fear of something that's happening. It's the uncertainty of just not knowing where things are going. Like we've always dealt with things, but it's always been like, there's this natural disaster or that problem or this, and it's something we know we can fix and we know what to do.
Yeah.
But this still has not ended.
Well, and we don't have the solution. We don't have this is the fix it. Mm-hmm. We're kind of navigating what it is, but we can really flow in and out of, I feel really good about where we're going, and I feel not so good about where we're going. And depending on where you live, that's going to flex a lot more. Yeah. And also in your certain circumstance, I'm sure I know in my world, people I work with, not everyone has their jobs back, and where's my finances coming from? Mm-hmm. And like you said, reopening your clinic, and I haven't fully reopened our studio yet, and there's lots of uncertainty, and so that makes a lot of sense, and that's really fascinating to know. Mm-hmm.
So with yourself, nearly drowning, and then now facing that fear to become truly a real life mermaid. Who has so much confidence, and again, we can never control the water, but you know how to ride and work with the water. And so is all that come for you, so within the 5 elements letting go, the system I use, it's all about Like every extreme emotion has a synergistic expression. And fear, its synergistic expression is courage. And it's interesting that anytime anyone has done anything courageous, it's always been preceded by fear. One doesn't come without the other.
Yeah.
To do something, without fear preceding it, it's not courageous. It's stupid.
Right.
You're just doing crazy things for adrenaline's sake. But when we recognize this is something that I fear or something that I know will be difficult or challenging, but instead of, because we think there's only two options, we can repress fear and bury it deep inside of us, or we can express a ton of fear and that just paralyzes us and shuts us down. But what happens is that signal of fear is just this energy that is provided for us. And now, if we repress it, it makes us sick internally with that energy. If we express too much, it causes external problems. But the middle road is to transform that energy into action. And that expression of courage is that tool to help us use that energy to make change in our life, to improve things, but also get us out of that situation.
Right.
So with yourself, what helped you to develop courage? Was it just learning all the tools and techniques, or how did you get over that initial, when you finally made that connection of that almost drowning to the ocean?
Yeah, I think, I truly believe it's through the work between. So it's pushing outside the boundary, and exactly what you're saying. It's like pushing just outside enough that you're not being reckless, but you're pushing it, and then you might retract a little bit. Oh, what I learned in that situation. So I'd go surfing and I'd fall off and I'd tumble underwater, and then I'd come up afraid, not able to take the inhale. What happens next? Get to the beach, flush it, like just let the emotion go through. And then the realization that, oh, I'm still here. So there's that, the original fear, I think, was I'm dying. I'm going to die. That's like, I went right to the, as a kid, you don't know. You're just going there. You can't take a breath of air. That's it. Your mental strength just goes, okay, we're done here. And I think in repeating that action time and time again, that every time I'd go out, and I definitely still face moments where I'm out there and I am mental talking to myself of, you're okay and you're safe. Do what you know that you know how to do. Like really going back to the fundamentals. I'm okay. I know how to swim. I can get from A to B, and that will make the difference. I think the other aspect is surrounding yourself with the support system and the network that, going with other paddlers, going out, not on your own, just builds that confidence within yourself. And kind of to your point, I take people on the water all the time. So I'm their confidence.
Yeah.
But someone was that for me as well. And my husband is definitely that person who's been there through that transition of a lot of anxiety, a lot of breakdowns into breakthroughs. The realization, I am okay. And someone's here to support me through it. And going back to sort of our first, like sitting with someone, was one thing to just have your mental instabilities and then replay that wiring over and over again, but then you're just sitting in it. But if you can channel it somewhere, sometimes it's just outward, write it down, say it out loud. But then when you say it to someone and you get some feedback, you have a moment to realign and kind of reassess. And I have lots of times I'll share stories of my own experience or readings in my classes, and people will say after class, wow, that really stuck with me, or really struck me. It's not going to strike everyone in the same way. Even us talking about this now, whoever's listening, is what we say will land only in what that person knows to this point, because they're still growing into who they're going to be. We all are.
Yeah.
And so as we transition, we learn more and we grow more, and then we learn more and we grow more. Then we might have something happen and we fall back into a fear or an anxiety or a stressful situation. I can personally say I have a lot of that going on right now, both with family being ill and not being able to travel and go visit. I watched my mental body fluctuate in and out of those rhythms. And the more we practice and use our tools, and your elements are, I've only just started
Oh, yeah? Okay.
the system, but I am in it, and it's watching what happens and finding the gaps between, okay, where am I now and where am I going? And how am I in this moment? As opposed to, I think easily as human beings, we jump so far into the future, or we go way back into the past.
Yeah.
We have a really hard time staying present. And that's why often we say things like, oh, one day at a time, but we often don't mean it.
Yes.
we're thinking way past or way future in either direction. And the more present we get, we realize, oh, we are safe and we are okay. And this is what we can do right now before we move into that next phase.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I always tell patients, and I bring it up in the course, that, humans are incredible time travelers.
Yes.
And when I bring that up with people, like in live courses, they give me this puzzled look, and I'm like,
yeah,
think about it. You spend so much time in your head in the past or the future, and you spend so little time in the moment. And the problem is when you spend, your time in the past, well, that just leads to depression, because you're looking back at the things and how they worked out, and, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or why did I do this, or why did that end? But if you look to the future too much, then it's all anxiety. And it's all, oh, is this going to happen or that's going to happen? And, I always tell the story of like little kids. Little kids are always, when they're very small, they're very good at being in the moment. But once they, get over like, 3 to 4 in that range, it's all about when's my birthday, when's Christmas, when's this. And they're always looking. And, we get older and we're like, okay, I can't wait for my first kiss. I can't wait till I get my license. I can't wait till I graduate. When I get married, that's when life is going to begin, and life will really be where it needs to be. And when I have a kid, well, then I'll finally feel complete, and life will begin. Yeah. And all these things that aren't true, but we tell ourselves this. We're always waiting for the next thing. Oh, I can't wait till I retire, and then I can really, enjoy life. And then all of a sudden, there's this snap, and everything changes, and they look back the rest of their lives. Oh, I miss my job. I miss the kids. I miss my knees and hips, and all this stuff.
Totally.
And the stress that I see a lot, especially right now with people, it's just, they're spending way too much time traveling. And because we don't know what's going to happen or what the bad is going to be. We just have to be prepared and, like you said, be in the moment, take each day at a time. Yeah. Do you find that with your clients when you're working with them, that they're spending too much time in their head and not enough time in their bodies?
Yeah, and I think it's a combination of spending more time in their body to get present. Because I think if we spend time in our body when we're in physical activity, we can't really be outside of ourselves. We're in that, like, when you're on the water and you're trying to balance, you're on one leg standing in the studio, you're trying to balance, you're the most present you'll be probably for the whole day. Because it's all you can think about is, I don't want to fall. And that's the infinite moment. And then, as I was sharing with some students recently, it's like watching a sunset, and the most beautiful, magical sunset. And you're in it and you're experiencing it, and it's just amazing. And then the instant you say out loud or to someone else, "Isn't this beautiful?" you're no longer in the moment. Yeah. You're comparing it to something, or you've taken yourself completely out of the moment.
Yeah.
And I love that comparison in the sense that we do that all the time. Right now, talking to you, this is all I have going on. I'm not worried about what I have to do next or what I just finished doing. We're just having a conversation. I don't know what you're going to say next. I could start to think about what you're going to say next, which is what a lot of people do in conversation. We think, oh, if he says this, I'll say, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And that was something that I must have been 20 something. And I had this realization. I was in a conversation. I can't tell you who it was. And I was watching the conversation in my head go for, I don't even know how long. And then they stopped talking and I hadn't heard a single thing they'd said.
Yeah, because you're planning on where it's going.
I woke up to it.
Yeah.
I just went, whoa, what just happened there? And in that second, I was like, okay, I need to just listen. I need to
Yeah.
hear what's happening here with my ears, what's happening right now, and then choose to respond, or whatever the next thing is, it'll come up.
Mm.
And that's a constant practice. I believe. I think we're always kind of dancing that road of past, present, and current, right?
Yeah.
We're past, present, present, future, past, present, future. And the more we dance back and forth, we start to find that smaller gap of, okay, I'm more present than not. But in this current time, in this kind of atmosphere, we're so far in the future of what's going to happen and trying to predict it with absolutely no way of knowing what's going to happen next. When this first started for us for travel, we love to travel, as I know you guys do. We love to go far off destinations. And I, at one point, just said, if I never go anywhere, I'm okay with that. And it just dropped the need to think, oh, where are we going to go
Mm-hmm.
next, and start
Mm-hmm.
planning ahead for it.
Yeah.
Of course, if I get to travel again, I want to go.
Yeah.
But I don't need to think about that right now.
Mm-hmm.
So allow it to just be what it's going to be, and wait for that decision or that deciding factor. I mean, we don't know until someone says this is how it's going to be. To your point, if you're at the doctor's office and you might be getting test results, it could be really good news, it could be really bad news, but you never know until the person says, this is the news.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of, I had a patient of mine recently, well, within the last year, she had sent me a message, and she had taken my course live. And we talk, of course we talk about the time traveling and the issues
Yeah.
we can have with it. But one thing that I brought up is how the problem with us spending too much time in the future is we create this future in our head about how everything's going to be. And then if it doesn't work out, then we have to mourn the loss of this imagined future.
Yeah.
And I shared the example of miscarriages and how, I have an issue with these early pregnancy tests, where you
Right.
can tell way too early.
Yeah.
And then, they know it like 4 or 6 weeks, and, 2 weeks later, there's a miscarriage. And majority of the time when there's a miscarriage, it's because the body's like, this isn't viable.
Already.
It's not safe for
Yeah.
you. This needs to happen. And so I mentioned how, in the past I've had patients where, dealing and letting go of the pain of that miscarriage is very difficult, because once they get pregnant, they start creating this image and this future of who this child is, what it's going to be like, where it's, how it's the marriage, everything. And they've invested so much into something that isn't real. And when they lose that, now they're not just mourning those cells that didn't work out. They're mourning the child that they've raised,
Yeah.
20, 30 years in their head, and the grandchildren and all of this stuff. And she had sent me a message not too long ago, and same thing had happened to her. We had talked
Right.
about this, and here she was trying to get pregnant, had a miscarriage late, and was, initially she was just heartbroken, and then she said she remembered
Right.
these things, and she just said, it's like it saved my life not having to go there and deal with that pain. And she was able to let it go, kind of move on, and within a matter of months, she had a viable pregnancy. She's like, quite far
Right.
along now. And but I think it's that ability to just be with the moment and be okay with where life is going. It sets you up and creates that space to receive later on.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do you see that in your work?
I would say, yeah, I mean, I think we see it in everything we do as human beings. But a lot of times that might show up, say, in a physical practice on the yoga mat, of wanting to achieve, wanting to get the pose, wanting to, I want to do a handstand, I want to do this big elaborate pose. And the more I teach and the more I practice, it's so much less about achievement and so much more about presence and awareness. But we all need goals and things to strive for. It's how we grow. It's how we push our boundaries. But we definitely see it in that, well, if I don't achieve this, then I'm not good enough. I'm not a good yogi. I can't do that pose. People say that, but people say it before they even come to a yoga class. They'll just say to me, "Oh, you teach yoga? I can't go to yoga. I'm too stiff." I'm just like, well,
But that's why it's
you've
there.
you've just completely null and voided why you just said you should do yoga, because you're really stiff. And it's exactly in that same realm of, well, I've already just diminished it and I can't do it because in my head, that's not what it is. But we set ourselves up all the time with these expectations on the paddleboard. Similar things happen, more so I'd say with really active and athletic people show up to paddleboard, and there might be runners or gym goers, and they get on the paddleboard and they can't stand up. And they think, well, why can't I do this? Like, I'm really fit, I'm really active. But they haven't developed the other subtle body movements, the ability to balance. All of your fast twitch muscles aren't firing, and now they've kind of diminished themselves before they've even, they thought they were going to be the rock star, and now they've gone the other way, and they feel like, oh, I'll never be able to achieve this. And we cut ourselves off before we even give ourselves an opportunity. And I think that is a big piece to mental health, because we right away are jumping into, I am going to do this, I am going to get there, but we need to give ourselves the space to actually move into it. And we don't do that. We have these high expectations, and we don't meet them, we're mourning the loss. And we're like, oh, well, I'll never get there. And I guess going back to even your question around like courage and having the courage to look past those moments. We all are going to set ourselves up to, hey, I want to do this. When I first wanted to make the national team and didn't make the team, I was heartbroken. And I thought, it's not meant for me. It's not meant to be. And I then flipped it for myself and said, well, if I put in the work, I'm going to put in as much work as I can. I'm going to do my very best. And then if I don't make it, I'll be okay with it, because I'll have then done my very best. And, I put the work in, I did the work, and I made the team. And I got to that level. I didn't win, but I made the team. Yeah. And I still am always striving. Hey, we all want to win. We all want to be our best version. We all have that little piece, even those that say I'm not competitive, there's still a small piece in there that says, if you won, you'd be pretty happy with yourself. Of course, yeah. So as we're striving to those things, but we also need to respect where we are in the journey, where we are on the path. And, I made the team I was probably 39. And I was like, I never thought I'd be on a national team at that age. I never dreamed of it. I wanted to be an equestrian back when I was young on the Canadian team, and let that dream go a long time ago. And then realized riding waves is like riding horses. So I made a different team. Yeah. And, you can still strive in those directions. And I think people should have goals and visions of what they want, but also to be compassionate with ourselves in where we're at in the system. And right now, especially, I think COVID time, as I refer to it, is kind of giving us an opportunity to be present, to reflect back and to look forward, but to also get really aware of what have we been doing that we don't need to be doing, and what do we really want to be doing to get to where we actually want to go. And our mind will keep bringing us back to the same cycle. In yoga, we call it samskaras. When you're in a samskara, you're in a cycle. And until you break that cycle, you're still in the cycle. And not to say you have to break every cycle. Some things are positive. We have positive habits. We have negative habits. But if we break them every now and again, we then see a new path. We can create a new cycle. But if we never break the cycle, nothing ever changes.
Yeah. It's so interesting. When I think of, stand-up paddleboarding, it just makes me think of that imagery of, you, like you said, you have to really be in the moment when you're on that board, because if you're not, you're going to go right off. And again, I can remember the first times I'm on the board, you're like this side by side, just your legs are just going, and because you're overthinking it.
Yeah.
And there's not this trust in your body that if I just relax, it's going to know what to do. Yeah. And it'll do this, and it takes that time to kind of get there with it and to trust, that, because really most of those boards, they're so big and wide that you have to really work to fall off of them. Yeah. But to trust in your body's ability to, that the more you relax, the more stable you're going to be on that board. Yeah. It's hard to give into that. Like to share with everyone else, I remember one time you and I were at the outdoor show in Calgary. Oh, yeah. And you asked me to come down, and Kristy brought boards, and they have a big pool set up. And we ended up doing some movement on one board together. Yeah. Which I think was incredibly brave for you, because that's like, you put me, like 120-pound you and me on a board, that's like 600 pounds. Yeah. Not even close, but. But, we get on this board, and I'll post a picture in the video eventually. But I could not get over the amount of trust you had in me to one, get on that board with me at the same time. We're in a yoga pose. I can't even remember which one it was.
I think we were in half pigeon, face to face. I definitely remember the one. I think we did a few different ones. Yeah. But it's funny how you say that, and I've heard that through students before, like, you have a lot more trust in me than I have in myself. Yeah. And I don't really know where that comes from for me. Like, I guess I see in people more possibility than they see in themselves. And perhaps because someone saw that in me. And I also have a lot of trust in if someone will listen to what I'm going to say. And I think that's, or when I'm directing the practice, so on the water especially, if someone truly listens to what I tell them to do, they'll be able to do it. Yeah. That much I know. Mm-hmm. And so with you, I knew that you were willing to hear what I needed you to do. And because you were willing to hear and do as I asked, that we would be successful. Yeah. But I also had that small chance that we could get wet too.
But we didn't. And it looked awesome. We got everyone, like there's a whole crowd around watching us do it. And then, of course, I'm getting all cocky. I got back on my own board, and Didn't
you fall in with your phone in your pocket?
I'm pretty sure I took my phone out, okay. But I was wearing jeans and a t-shirt.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah. And
really good yoga wear.
Yeah, I think I was doing, I can't remember if I was trying to do I can't remember which movement it was. Either it was a headstand or I was trying to get up on one foot and do something great, like I don't know, something stupid. And I went a little too far with it. And of course I went in, and everyone enjoyed me falling in. It was quite impressive.
Yeah. Everyone always enjoys someone else falling in. But it actually reminds me of when I first started doing yoga on the paddleboard. Like almost the very first time I ever did yoga on a paddleboard was truly where I found effort and surrender. Mm-hmm. And we talk about effort and surrender in yoga all the time, to you've got to be strong, but you have to soften at the same time. And it's like softening the outer for the inner, frame to stay strong. And when I started yoga, I practiced a lot of hot yoga, a lot of power yoga. That was my go-to style, very, very yang, very A-type, I would call it. Mm-hmm. And then I got on the paddleboard and went, oh, if I try to fight this, if I try to muscle it, if I over effort, I'm going swimming for sure. But also on the same hand, if I underwork, I'm also going to go in. Yeah. So it's back to that, being so present on the paddleboard, whether you're just paddling or you're doing yoga, is that ability to surrender a little of your ego, a little of your okay, I can breathe and go. I always say to people when they first stand up, just take a breath. Just stand up and take a breath. Like,
Yeah. Let's
don't
reset.
even do anything else. Just relax. And you'll find it. And the success is huge. And when people get it, and it's the moment people start talking to me about something that's not paddleboard related, that I know that they're now relaxed.
Yeah. Oh, that's a
Because they'll
good
spend
cue.
those first 15, 20 minutes just like super in the like, yeah, I'm so present. I got to figure this out. I got to force it. And then the instant they're like, so when you're paddleboarding, or when you're not paddleboarding, what are you doing? And they start talking to me. I go, oh, okay, you're good now.
Yeah.
You're finally here. You're
Yeah.
finally aware. Yeah.
You're so aware as a teacher. That's super cool.
It's pretty neat. I mean, years of doing it, it's you just become, I guess, more present to what your students are going through. And I can do a lot of things on my paddleboard now I couldn't do a couple of years ago. Paddle on one foot and walk around on my board while they're just trying to stand up. And it also inspires. So it's kind of like going to your yoga class and you see the teacher doing inversions or back bends that you're like, whoa, I want to be able to do that. But you have to also be willing to do the work to get there.
Yeah.
And it took me 9 years of work to get where I am. And it's a lot of hours and a lot of practice and a lot of training, just as why we go to, people in your work, in your profession of, you've done a lot of work. You've worked with a lot of people. You have something to provide. And kind of looping back to our mental health piece is being around people who've done the work and are able to support and recognize sort of where you're going and what you need to get there. And sometimes it doesn't look like sitting on a couch with a therapist. Sometimes it looks like going for a paddleboard lesson and getting on your mat, or even turning on an online yoga class and doing that work with, you might be fearful of being with people right now. And I get that. I don't want to be around a lot of people right now, but you can still have a conversation and connect and learn something from that perspective.
It's really interesting. I like what you said about, surrendering, but would you say, what was the other, ability or effort and surrendering?
And surrender, yeah.
Because that fits with the time traveling, because I find when I talk to patients about getting into the moment, if they try too hard, then they focus too much on their thoughts.
Yes.
And then they get caught in that trail of thoughts. Where did this thought come from? What made me think of this? And they get all caught up with it, trying too hard. And if you don't try at all, then you just get into these habits of your mind wandering and going off. So it's finding that balance of trusting yourself to be, to not overdo it, but, surrendering to the moment at the same time. And it like with anything, like you said, it takes time and hours and effort, and eventually that comes. And that's something that, I think, especially with mental health, I always try to explain to the patients that there's your hardware and your software. And, I can fix your hardware. I can take a look at the graph and balance you out and giving your body what you need, clear out that excess out of the system, and you can feel grounded. And then you need to work on your software by rewriting it.
Right.
Because our software is like how we think and how we deal with our emotions and all that. But if we don't fix the hardware first, asking someone to rewrite their software when their hardware is still messed up, it's cruel and unkind.
Right.
But we have to kind of approach it from both ends. So I say to patients, okay, you're doing well, you're balancing out. Now you got to do the hard work. You got to put the effort in every day. And so even if you're catching yourself, after you're feeling depressed and feeling anxiety, you're recognizing that connection. And each time you do it, you can get closer and closer to that point where you're stopping it before it even becomes something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that goes right to when I was learning to be in the water again. Every time I'd go back into it, I was more aware each cycle of how much you were in it, and how much I was in it, and how much I was pulling back from it. And you're, efforting and surrendering back and forth. You're going, okay, I'm doing too much, not enough. And it's, it's all about balance. That's what we always say, but it truly is.
Yeah.
You've got to find all the elements. I lean a lot into water, as you know, but I have a heavy earth quality too. I enjoy being in the forest, and if I feel ungrounded, water is not always the best thing for me. But getting in the forest and getting into nature kind of brings another layer. And I went through a phase of that last year where all I wanted to do was be in the forest. And I think it's, if you can trust that your inner knowing knows, you follow it and go and do those things that call you.
Yeah. Well, you have some pretty magnificent forests out there. Did you get into the big cedar forest in Tofino while you were there?
No, not so much. We spent a lot of time catching waves.
Yeah. We went on a few hikes through there. That place. We stayed at Middle Beach.
You by like a day.
Yeah, we stayed at Middle Beach, and there's paths from Middle Beach all the way into Tofino. So we just walked that path every day. It was lovely.
Stunning, right?
Yeah. It's all of these things just kind of remind us back to how uncertain things are at this time, but it's through just like someone standing on the water, trying to learn how to stand on that board. I know for me, there's something about your presence and this calm and this trust in yourself and everyone around you that just makes everyone feel so at ease. And having, when we're struggling and we're doing it, like we can't do it on our own. We can't, expecting us to learn anything on our own is a little ridiculous, but it's nice to have people like yourself in there, to support us and guide us and lead us through things. And, I know for myself, I don't always feel 100% confident or, that I'm going to figure it out. But I'll tell you, I have, my little gurus. I wouldn't say gurus, but people that I see and trust, and just being around them, Chris is that for me, Andy, you, these people I know that are just so charmed and just this ease and confidence in them, and you're one of those people. And I whenever we miss each other when we head out of the coast, it always drives me crazy because I just love hanging out with you and your husband, because you're both such just chill, awesome people.
Well, and back at you, we love being able to see you guys when you come out this way, and we hope to get out your way one of these days. I'm sure we'll get into a visit in the mountains somewhere, or across the mountains, I should say. But it is important, I think, for everyone to have those people you lean into when there's uncertainty and something's amiss. And like you, my partner Adam, he's my go-to for all the things. And it's fortunate to have that person, but also my teachers, and Julia, who I spend time through this COVID time doing breath work with. She's been as an anchor for me, even though and I know as a teacher on Zoom, you're teaching to a lot of faces, and you don't always see those faces. There's a little black box with a little head and the shoulders, and they kind of, someone's there, but you don't know how you've reached them. There was a chunk of time before I got on Zoom that I just did online classes on social media, Facebook and Instagram. And I had so many messages from people, students I hadn't seen in years, students who had just found me, and just gratitude messages of, one woman I recall, she had lost her husband not that long ago. She was on her own. She said, "I felt like you were in the room with me." Oh. And, those are the things that keep me as a teacher. Though I'm on the other end of a screen, I have no idea if anyone's watching. But one of my teachers, Baron Baptiste, years ago said, you teach to one, teach to all. And if you reach one person in 100, then you've done your work. And I think that's trying to remember that in these times for, people like us who are doing work on individuals, maybe one person at a time. We don't always know how deeply we're affecting people. And it's not about us knowing that, but it's allowing that to be available and getting that impact. So I thank you for all the information you shared, God, we've a few years back, and I was going through an awful lot too. You really helped me out too. So it's, now doing that work with the 5 elements, and it's great.
Oh, thank you so much.
Keep it up.
For anyone who's listening or watching, if you're looking for a little bit of inspiration or support, I'm going to put all of Kristy's social connects and everything. If you get out to the coast, you need to call Vancouver Sup. Kristy will take you out for a lesson. She supplies the boards, everything, and you'll see some beautiful landscapes and learn how to sup. And it's she's definitely someone that you should have in your follow list to kind of give you a lift every day, because she posts a lot too, so that's fun. I always know what Kristy's doing because she posts so much.
Yeah, my stories anyway. I've kind of fallen off everywhere else, but
yeah, that's okay.
If you follow my story, you always know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking this time. I know, again, I have so much fun doing this, and I know every time someone listens, there's always someone, like you said, if we can reach the one, there's someone that's going to be listening to this stuff, that this discussion on, fear and anxiety is going to make a huge difference and help them overcome. And I thank you so much. You're truly a rock. And, I myself, one thing that I really believe has really come to light through COVID is that, we need to pay more attention to the amazing women in our lives. If we've looked at what COVID has proven to us, it's the countries that did the best and succeeded the most were all run by women. And there's we need to have that influence and that guidance, from powerful women in our lives to lead us up and guide us. And you're one of them for me. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jared. Thanks for having me.
Yep. We really appreciate that, and we'll get this stuff up because I do think it was such a fabulous discussion. I really appreciate all the things you shared.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Thank you to Kristy, and we'll get her social stuff up and everything. You can follow her, and maybe you'll be lucky enough to get out on the water with Kristy. It'll be amazing. Great. Thank you, everyone. What a great episode with Kristy. I really appreciate her time. I know it was we had to reschedule once or twice, and she spends so much time on the water. She said to me later that she's been so busy right now, like one of the busiest seasons ever of people that want to learn SUP and get outside and get on the water. So she's been really busy. So I really appreciate the time that she gave to us to have that discussion. She's one of my favorite people, and it's interesting too when you look at the 5 elements and the personality types in the 5 elements. Kristy has a lot of water in her. She's a bit of an introvert in a way. She's great with people, but she prefers her space, and her and her husband like their alone time, and she's an old soul. And with the water element, these are people that are, seeking truth. They enjoy their alone time. They're not people that are going to jump up in front of everyone and want to be the center of attention, but they have this very relaxed, calm energy. And, I feel as Kristy, like, she is like water. She just goes with the flow always. She's so confident and just a powerful person. And, as we're getting in there talking about the water element especially, it's very interesting, talking about all those things with water and fear and all this, and that, although she almost drowned as a 9-year-old, to later face those fears and become someone who's truly conquered the water, in that, she's conquered that fear and she becomes one with the water. I don't think you can ever really conquer the ocean because it will take us all down. But she's learned to become one with it. And, she really is a mermaid in so many ways. And she's a very wonderful individual. So thank you again, Kristy, for the time and for, just blessing us all with your calm confidence. If you want to learn more about the 5 elements, personality types, and all of that, you can go to jaredmccallum.thinkific.com. The link is in the description, And you can always go to jaredmccallum.com to learn more about myself, acupuncture, and our course. And there, once you check out the course, you can always take there's a couple free sections that you can listen to and check out on the course. And one of them is the personality test. And you can learn more about what element you are. And from there, if you take the course, you'll learn so much more about how you deal with emotion, understand them, and to let them go. Thank you so much, everyone. We're really having a lot of fun. This was my first distance podcast. And although it was a little challenging, I made one mistake there. I'm learning from it, and we'll just get better each time. So I appreciate your patience. I appreciate your listening ear. And we love you all. And, do your best to show more kindness and patience with everyone during this trying time, because the world is weird right now, but we're doing our best. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day. Thanks for listening.